Hey folks, welcome to today's video. Now, a lot of people will spend a lot of currency to upgrade aspects of their build for 2%, 5% pieces of incremental damage, and that's all well and good. But I think an aspect that people seem to forget about are the flasks are some of the most important things you can use in Path of Exile. Number one, they are in every single build you have flasks. Number two, you're probably pressing them every single map. And three, they can provide insane defense or damage. And number four, if you didn't know, we have now been introduced to fractured flasks, meaning that our orbs that we use to craft have become a lot easier because the mod is locked on there. That goldish looking mod means that can never be changed, and that drops from the new Arch Nemesis update. Now, we'll take a look at an example here. You might be spending, like I say, a few divines for a chest piece, getting some more armor and evasion, but when you have the right flask set up, it can make all the difference. So you will look here, my damage is 600,000, and I scale my damage based off armor and evasion. Having rolled the correct flasks, I will go up to 750,000 damage, and with my totem up, I'm at 886,000. So we are almost pretty much whacking an enormous amount of damage from a flask. But also these have a ton of utility, which we'll go ahead and demonstrate. And I just want you to think about the fact you can actually spend money on your flasks. Flasks actually sell. It's a great way to make money. You might think, what are you talking about, flasks sell? There are flasks out there that if they drop, will sell for a divine orb, will sell for 50C, will sell for 100C, and there are people that purchase them because there are huge chunks of power. So if you're running around and you're really struggling, maybe have a go at crafting a flask. Maybe look if you've got any of these flasks worth any money, because maybe you don't realize. Now, if we take a look at these other flasks, which are basically the same, except they're just not quite as tuned. Maybe you've just finished mapping, and you're like, yep, my flasks are all right, I've got my gear, and then you press your flasks, and as you'll notice here, we have 720k, right? I think previously we had, I think it was like 810k plus the totem going down, and the difference is large. And the utility they provide is large. So what we'll talk about is exactly what kind of flasks you need. That obviously depends on your build. But maybe just think about a few things and I'll show you the trade. So in here, we have gain 2 flask charges when you are hit by an enemy. Gain 3 when you are hit by an enemy. Gain 3 when you are hit by an enemy. These are quite hard to roll. These sell. If I was to go and sell this flask right now, 1.5 divines. Now, if this flask dropped on the floor with no quality and no enchant, would you think a divine orb has dropped on the floor? Probably not. A lot of people don't realize that spending money on flasks is very, very good. It's useful, and that they're out there. People buy them. Now, maybe they won't sell for a divine, but I guarantee you, if you whacked this flask up for 50C, somebody would buy it. Now, you can use these instilling orbs, which give you this white text above it. And this means that when my charges are reached to full, it will be used. And then when that is full, the adjacent flasks will be used. And you can go onto your bench and you can use 5 of these instilling orbs and 5 glass blowers baubles and select the one that you want. That way you don't have to press any flasks. And just to show you like a character like mine that's very tanky, it's super useful, and I just think people aren't probably spending enough on their flasks, because you'll go out there and spend a ton of money on a 2120 gem that you might not use all the time, like your totem, but your flasks are up permanently, and those are the things that are super useful. So if we look here, right, let's say I've just killed all of these monsters, right? I've used all my flask charges. Now I would then have to kill a monster to get my flask charges back on a regular build, right? However, you will see here that my flask charges just come back to me because I am gaining a charge each time they are hit. Now, obviously, I have a large amount of evasion and armor, but the point is when I'm in a boss fight and I'm up close tanking and I'm meleeing, you can see how many flask charges I can generate because I just get them back through being hit. You'll see here my quartz flask is filling up. My armor flask is filling up, and obviously I'm dodging a lot. There you go. So you don't have to kill a load, you know. And when we go back and we put in these other flasks, which are just nowhere near as good, you will notice that once I'm out of flasks and I'm running around here, I have no flasks now. The only way I can get flasks back is by killing these things, and sometimes there's, you know, it's a boss, you can't kill it, so you don't get flash charges, and then you lose damage, because you saw I gained about 150k damage through charges. So if I can get those charges back through being hit, that's great. And that's just an example of the power that flasks can give you. And there are tons of different mods which we can show you, and it's just important to recognize that there's an opportunity there for you to make some money through crafting, and actually, yeah, go ahead and improve your build for cheap. People put flasks up for cheap all the time because I don't think they realize people buy them. Now, these fractured mods are a bit awkward to search, but what we can do is if we pull up the trade window, you'll see that it's kind of looks like this. So you type in the mod that you want, and then you click it, and then it will say fractured. And then if we look at fractured, you'll say, oh, look, there's a fractured corrupting blood mod. That's the tier 1 perfectly rolled for 85 chaos. And this is the thing, these things can drop and be worth money, and people will buy them. I decided to go the route of a seething fractured flask, so it's instant recovery, and then I would roll the immunity myself. But these flasks are out there, and they are worth money. Like I said, if you want to go ahead and look up this 3 charges, 1.5 divines, because it's well rolled. And this might not seem like a lot, but when you're constantly using your flasks every single time in every single map, it can make a big difference just to the smoothness of the gameplay. Take this, for example, this Quicksilver. It has 93 charges, and because I've rolled max charges and I've got the higher tier roll, I actually get 3 uses of this flask rather than 2. And you might say, oh, well, I'll just kill an extra monster. But sometimes there isn't an extra monster there. Sometimes it's nice to have the extra utility. And these things as well, what's good about buying and rolling good flasks is that they work on every build. And if they don't work on your build, you can sell them. So do take a look out for these fractured mods. You can have a look now if you go on flasks and search. There's not one up there with fractured armor, for example. There's 130 chaos. It's not the greatest roll. Probably wouldn't have that one. But they're beginning to become available. And I don't think people realize the power that they have. You can see here, perfectly rolled fractured one on a gold flask. On an amethyst. I can't speak today, flask. And I just think that, yeah, it's important to think about your flasks, because we all spend a ton of currency rolling our builds and min-maxing a tiny piece of cold resistance or a tiny piece of juice, when a lot of the time, a lot of the power just does come straight through the flasks. And remember, scour them, quality them to 20. Use some instilling orbs so you can save your wrists. I don't have to press my flask. All I have to do is press one flask and they all press. You have no idea how nice that is to not have to map. And then once I've pressed it once it refills, it reaches full charges, and then the adjacent flasks are used. It's a lifesaver for not having to press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 constantly. And you get great effectiveness. You can have a large amount of evasion, armor, dodge, attack speed. Like the difference, right? I have tier 2 attack speed on this. We can go higher with the attack speed, and you might say, well, it's not worth it. But if you were to buy a weapon, and you were to look at the attack speed and say, oh, this one has got 17 attack speed, and the bottom one has got 12, that's 5% attack speed. That's nothing to be sniffed at, and I think people will think twice about spending 10, 20 chaos on a flask, should I say, whereas if it was a duel and it had 5 extra attack speed, you might be like, oh nice, I've got 5 extra attack speed, that's a passive point. So this video is just a simple one. I like to try give out different videos. It's not all about min-maxing currency and juicing and all of that stuff. Sometimes just to get your brain thinking about other avenues. And likewise, maybe you then have really nice flasks and you think, oh, all of a sudden I'm much healthier position and I can drop a passive point, and then I can add an extra passive point in, which lets me change, and then that gets your brain thinking. So don't be scared to spend money on your flasks. They're very useful pieces of utility. That's today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Leave a like, leave a comment, consider subscribing. Check me out on twitch.tv/GGZII. Have a great evening. Also, just want to say, obviously, condolences. The Queen Your Majesty. It was a really surreal day today. I felt like I was watching a funeral of my grandma, almost. It's been quite a weirdly emotional day, a quiet day. It's just been a strange one. So yeah, I just thought I'd brighten myself up, try help some people out with PoE. All right, take it easy.